Good afternoon or good morning. It is time for my first book review. Yes, you heard that right, a book review. I have been hating on the Max Ellery Vehicle Repair Manual for about 3 years now, and it is time that you heard why I have such dislike for this book. Install valve. Like, what valve? What is it talking about? I might get copyright flagged here because I'm going to show you some of the exact pages, but I have made actual notes inside the book so that I can tell you exactly why I think this thing is a nuisance, and what you should do instead is just pinch the official Toyota field service manuals. Definitely don't Google Land Cruiser FSM if you want to avoid those. Let me tell you why this book is a frustrating piece of literature, and I do not think it is worth the £40 price tag that I paid for it. Okay everyone, all the camera angles are going to be weird here, and I've got a tripod in the way, but we're going to do our best. I'm also going to move my knife. Hopefully I won't need that. This is a very generic manual. It is attempting to deal with 30 years worth of Land Cruisers. I bought this for the 100 series because it's basically the only manual that I can get. You can get this on eBay, you can get it on Amazon, or I bought this one from Rough Tracks, who sell a lot of car parts to me, and they do a great job. Having a physical paper copy is very useful because trying to pull out an iPad or something while you're working on the car is a nightmare. But it attempts to do too much, and one of my big bugbears is it doesn't actually have the 5-speed automatic transmission. Gearbox for the 100 series changed in I think 2003, and we got the 5-speed, and it's not in this book, so there's nothing that I can find in here to help me with my 5-speed gearbox issues. Manage your expectations here. This is not as good as a Toyota service manual. Your mileage may vary, but let me get you into some specifics of where this is particularly frustrating. So it's here on the diagram of the air intake system. Air filter blocker switch. Sorry, air filter blockage switch. Mate, that's a math. That is a that's a math sensor. And it's not there, it's over here in this pipe. So I don't know why it's telling me it's down here on the battery. It's not, it's in the intake pipe. What the hell is going on? Here's an example of a section that is actually really, really great. The alternators are a bit of a weak spot on the 1HD because people overload them with accessories. And on the 2UZ engine, it becomes a problem because I think there's a coolant system which leaks nearby, and so these get damaged because of that. If you wanted to, you could do a complete strip down and rebuild of the alternator using this guide. The diagrams are great. You've got exploded diagrams that show you how many insulators, how many bolts and nuts and so on there are. It doesn't show you the sizes, which is frustrating. There's nothing about part numbers, but this would go a long way to removing and reconstructing an alternator. So not all the pages are bad. Here is a pretty great guide to adjusting the valve clearances on the 1HD. It has the clearances when cold, it has everything written out in 2 different measurements, inches or millimeters, depending on what language you speak. It's got a great guide. It gives you no help whatsoever in reaching the valve clearances. You just got to make that up on your own. And there's got these generic statements, like let me read you one here. It will be necessary to remove the rocker cover, etc. Refer to appropriate section. Like that's it. And there's no glossary in this book, so you can't look rocker cover up. There's wiring diagrams at the back. So you can't look up the word R in the index and find the section. You have to go back to the completely unformatted list at the front and hope that you can find it. And, you know, spoiler alert, there is no rocker cover section in here. I think it's in engine removal. Speaking of, there's plenty of information here about high-level process of disassembling the engine, or remove oil pan, remove fuel feeds. It tells you the things that you have to do, but you get to a step where it just says remove engine. Like, it's not helpful to have it this high level where it just says dismantle, mount the engine in a stand. But it didn't tell you how to get it out of the car. What bolts to remove, it doesn't tell you how many bolts, it doesn't tell you what sizes they are. It just says remove stuff. Remove fuel feed, remove brake booster, remove exhaust manifold. But it doesn't help you actually do it. And then it tells you, remove engine. Good luck with that. This section is one that particularly frustrated me because I had a problem with my fan clutch at the front. The guide here says things like, detach the fan shroud from the radiator. Okay, well, how many bolts are involved? Where are they? Where are the diagrams that help me find that? Is the thread left-handed? And the most important thing here, you must apply heat to this because all of the nuts or screws, they're all Loctited, so you need to heat it or they're not coming off. This doesn't give you that critical piece of information, so you could damage the bolts because you haven't applied heat first of all. But again, it's not all bad. On the other side of the page, there's a great section here for all the capacities, all the different types of engines and radiators and transmission combinations, apart from the 5-speed, of course, it just assumes they're all 4-speed. This is great because it works in several languages, gives you quartz, imperial quartz. This is excellent. However, these capacities should all be in one location. I can't go to the index and look up capacities and find a single section with capacities. They are scattered throughout the entire book, and you have to go to specific sections in order to find the capacity. That's a slow way of finding information. This is a bit of a gem that I found in here. It's kind of a notorious internet problem about resistances on the spill control valve for the injection pump on the 1HD, and it tells you exactly where to find the terminals. It tells you the resistances and what temperature you should measure them at. That's actually great because it tells you where to go. You can't see any of this stuff until you go through the process of removing all the covers, which it doesn't tell you how to do. So if you come into your engine, you can look at this and you go, well, I don't see any of this stuff. This isn't familiar to me. And because it's all under cover and it doesn't even mention it. Here's another frustrating section about turbocharger. It just calls it turbocharger. It doesn't tell you what turbo is it, which one's got variable vane technology. It just says turbo. There's no list of part numbers or the type of turbo. It doesn't give you dimensions, airflow, part numbers, who makes the damn thing. So if you want to remove a turbocharger, this will get you part of the way there. But if you want to replace any of the parts, this is no help. If you want to know what your turbo is, you have to visually inspect the turbo. You have to get to it and basically take photos of the part numbers, because this thing is no help. It just says turbocharger. Here's a real doozy for you. This section is all about the differential capacities. The diff oil capacities here, it says your differential fluid is 2.8 litres or 2.9 US quarts. That's different to what the Toyota manual says. Both the in-car manual and the Toyota factory service manual, different numbers. So you can take this information about the differential and treat it with extreme caution because it seems to be wrong. Here's another section which just fails to give sufficient detail. Now, this is an exploded diagram of the front suspension, the shock absorbers, very useful. It's got the solid axle version and the independent front suspension. There's a page on the left here that describes what toe in and toe out is and how you'd feel it in the car. It says things like front wheel bearings should be correctly adjusted. Well, that's vague, but I got here because I wanted to understand if I could adjust my caster on the car because I've lifted it a little bit. But it just says the caster is adjusted on the upper control arm. That's it. That's all it has to say on the matter. It just tells me that on one vehicle you can't do it at all, and on the other one it says it's adjusted on the upper control arm. Thanks very much, that wasn't helpful. It's got some great sections here on the interior panels of the car, tailgate, the handles and so on. It's got some good pictures here where someone's actually stripped down a car and taken pictures of the process. But again, it doesn't tell you how many bolts, what are the sizes, what spanners do I need to dig out of my toolbox before I start. It takes some pictures which are useful, but it doesn't tell you what I need to do. It says lock control mounting screws. This one points to 2 screws, but there are a lot more than 2 screws involved here. God, air conditioning. I'm not going to really get into this one because you know how much trouble I've had with air conditioning. There's a piece here that just says, well, if you're going to install your air conditioner, look at this bit. It just says install valve. Like, what valve? What is it talking about? Here's another bit when it's talking about belt tension. I've had problems with belt tension. It says inspect the condition of the belt. Tension in inches. Now maybe I'm an idiot, right? But it says here in the asterisk, deflection in pounds. But none of this is in pounds. This is talking about inches. Am I an idiot here, or is that just unhelpful? I don't understand what that means. It doesn't help me. This part's wild. This is actually useful. This is where you can bridge the diagnostic terminal in the engine bay and you can see the check engine light will flash. There's a sequence of flashes and it's got all the patterns listed out here that tell you what that actually means. So if you don't have access to TechStream, you can bridge the pins and you can read fault codes using the sequence of flashes. Now, this is like reading Morse code. I wouldn't like to do it, but if I was caught short and I didn't have my laptop, sure, I could interpret the flashes. May God have mercy on the person who has to do that. Fortunately, there's only 2 pages, but my God, they all look so similar. Anyway, it's a start, right? And the fact that they've taken the time to print pictures and graphs there, that's actually a great page. And the wiring diagrams, of course, are invaluable. I don't know whether they're accurate or not. That's way beyond my skill level, but at least they're in there. Correct voltages for a lot of the parts, engine idle, EGR, glow plugs and stuff. There's loads in here, specifications for voltages. That's useful. And one of my major bugbears is that there's no glossary, there's no index in the back of the page. I can write myself a memo. I can begin writing my memoirs or write a communist manifesto, but I can't look up in the book where I can find stuff. So if I want to know about gaskets or capacities is the one that I come here most frequently for, and it isn't there. I have to browse to the first section and try and follow the trail to see where things are, or I just have to flick through and hope I see something that looks like a differential and then guess what the capacities are. Thank you for listening to my rant about the Max Ellery manual. I think it's trying to cover too long a time period, and given the scarcity of manuals for the Land Cruiser, this is one of the only things that you can get, and you're kind of stuck with it if you can't find the official Toyota manuals. I'm not ready to throw this away. There's occasions where it is useful. Sometimes it will mention an SST, like an official Toyota service tool, and I can punch that number into eBay and find that someone's reproduced a version of it, and I can buy a special tool. Some of this knowledge is way more specified than I could ever need, like diff backlashes and, tells me how to use a gauge and so on. And other times, I just want to know how many 14mm bolts are involved and whether I need a 14 and a 12. Like, that would be useful to know from this book before I go tackling a job. But that just isn't what it's for. I think it's trying to do too much over too long a time period in order to be fully relevant, especially since some of the cars that are in here, like the 70 series, are still in production now. I mean, you probably have to buy them from the UN Special Operations in Gibraltar, but you can acquire them. Sometimes you'll find it's got loads of detail, and other times I just want to know where the 14mm bolts are and how many I have to unbolt, and it doesn't have that level of information in. So it's just a vast contrast between, telling me exactly how many O-rings are on my brake calipers, or telling me that there aren't any O-rings whatsoever, and I don't just have to guess once I get in there. For 40 quid, don't rush to buy this, because it's not going to be the one-stop shop manual that you're looking for. You're still going to be, like me, asking ChatGPT, asking I Hate Mud forums. It's actually quite frustrating, because when I do need something, chances are it's not there. Thank you for listening to my moan. If you disagree with me, that's cool. I just wanted to share with people my experience of this book, because there's so little information available for the Land Cruiser in terms of printed manuals. This is one of the only ones you can get readily, and in a lot of cases it isn't going to help you. All of this is just my opinion. I am not a mechanic. I'm just a dick on the internet. Temper your expectations about just how useful this book is going to be for you. We'll be back probably next week with another video, probably fixing something else that's broken and less of a rant. Thank you for watching. Look after each other, make good decisions if you can, and I will see you in another video very soon. Thank you for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.